Got those three done up, so that's in place. Threaded the handbrake cable through, and my arms aren't quite long enough to hold the cable and come in here, so as I was holding the cable outside the car, Pat just pushed this clip home, so that's now secured. I've not attached that to here yet. I want to wait until I've built everything up in the drum first, and then we'll connect this part and adjust properly. Next thing is the wheel cylinder. I put some rust treater on the exposed steel bits, just so that they've got a little bit of protection. That way up. Goes with the bleed nipple to the top. And you sort of have to snake everything in. There's a small hole here and a locating pin on your wheel cylinder. Oh yeah. And you have to undo the bleed nipple, otherwise you can't thread everything through. There we are. Right, so that brings the hard line just up here where the bracket is, where you can't see. And this is fairly secure even without that clip. I learned when I was looking for a replacement they're called E-clips, and it's a funny size on this car, so I'm going to have to order some. I'll tell you what, with it painted silver you can actually see things a bit easier. So there's the bleed nipple and the locating pin and your hard line, which goes around the back of the drum, pops up there and heads off to this bracket on the top of the trailing arm, and that then threads in there, and your flexi line goes up to that bracket up there. We shan't worry about that for now. Next task is to turn this lot into an operational brake drum. I don't like doing brake drums. I don't like doing brakes at all. But needs must. I shan't be reusing the old shoe components, obviously, except for pieces that might not be on the replacements. Because you can see on these, they don't have that lever, they're just the shoes themselves. So I'm going to set out my parts so I know how they go on there, and then I'll bring you back and explain what the various new parts are and the problems that you encounter when you're doing Princess drums. This got a tiny bit more annoying as I was laying everything out. This is the original hardware that came out of the drum on this side, and what had failed on this side is these locking washers up here. This one's completely disappeared, and that's allowed everything to sit wrong in the drum, and I think that's what the knocking noise I was hearing was. There isn't a lot of material on these brake shoes anyway, so it's gone through it fairly quickly. Fortunately, there's no scoring in the inside of the outer drum, so I've got away with that. Caught it early enough. The problem is, those Ferodo brand drums that I was going to use, when I got them out the box, these have been used before. There's not as much material on here as there should be, and there's very obvious wear marks from the hardware being on them, so they're kind of emergency drums. Fortunately, some time ago I was given these, and it really is some time ago now, and I've kept them safe just in case I ever need them. The only issue is they have asbestos, so I shan't be licking them. Right. So what's the problem with these drums? And the problem is, nobody seems to make the hardware for these drums at all. The only things you can get is the shoes. They seem to be still fairly easy to get hold of on the second-hand market, and the springs and washers and retaining pins. The springs, they don't exist. Nobody seems to do them. The nearest I could find was Jensen Healy Mark II, which is what this one is set up with. Now, the big difference seems to be that these springs are ever so slightly shorter than these springs. But given that these have been in the car for as long as they have, I'm wondering if these might have stretched. So I'm going to assemble it with the Jensen Healy springs and see how it works. If it all goes together okay, great, no problem. The other issue with the Jensen Healy is the pins are too short. So the one on the right there is a Jensen Healy Suitables pin, and the one on the left is a Ford generic pin. The Princess pins are 42mm long, the Jensen ones are shorter. This is because the shoes on the Jensen are thinner, top to bottom, or front to back as it's in the brake, than the Princess. So I didn't know that until after I'd ordered the pins, so never mind. Hopefully this will all assemble okay. The other thing that I don't have, which I didn't realise I needed, is I need some more of these E-clips to put these levers onto the new shoes. For now, because I've got other things I need to address inside here, and I just want things together, I'm going to reuse these E-clips, order some replacements, and then put new ones in. I've got that other one I need to do for the brake cylinder. At the moment I just want all the hardware put in the drum, and I want the wheel back on the car so it's not sat on an axle stand. As soon as the new parts come in, I can then swap everything over. Not the conventional way of doing it, but honestly with this job I've had such a problem getting parts for any of it that yeah, it's dragged on quite long enough. We're learning together on this one. It's been so long since I did it. Okay, let me just take this back a couple of steps. I've transferred this over. This is your adjuster, automatic adjuster. And these E-clips, honestly, they're in pretty good shape. They're not particularly rusty, they're definitely not weak, they're nice and strong, so I'm just going to roll with those. I think they'll be okay. I'm not replacing the tension spring here, obviously, it's not a part you can get, and I'm reusing the levers. The very first thing you do, and obviously I've changed this one over as well, is the handbrake cable. In the end, there's that slot, and you feed the cable through the little round bit and then turn it, and that just locks the spring in place so everything returns. There's a little notch in each side here, and they sit in the notch up at the top there as well to just locate everything. On this side, again, they just sit in your two notches. Yep, we're in that one. But you also have this bar, and it goes this way round on its side like that. Hook this side first because it's easier. Because on this side it just pushes against that shoe there in that slot. Now we have to put the springs in. And I don't like doing the springs because everything wants to come apart on you when you put the springs in. Right, so you go from there, and this needs to stretch all the way over to there. I feel like that should probably hook that way around, so it probably wants to be the other spring. How did it go originally? I don't know. Apparently it does go that way. Always check your old hardware if you've got it. Oh, yeah, I don't stand a chance. I think these might be too short, which is very annoying. But not entirely surprising. Okay, got this top spring in, but honestly that looks wrong to me. I think that the difference in the length of the springs is too great, and these are going to be under too much tension. There must be more differences than I thought between the Jensen Healy version of these and the Princess version, which means I'm going to have to reuse my old springs. Don't really want to do that, but I literally cannot find a brake rebuild kit for the drums on this car. Nobody seems to make one, and I remember the last time we did it, it was very difficult to get a kit, so yeah. Happily the old springs do still look in pretty good shape. They're a little bit scruffy, but they're not beyond it. Anyway, how I did this was I folded the shoes in towards one another, hooked the springs on, and then pushed them flat against the backing plate, and that got everything in place. That was a lot easier. However, I had to be in the way of the camera to do that, so I probably can't show you how I do it, but I'll give it a go anyway. Okay, let's try this again. I've already got the bar just resting on here, because that makes things a little bit easier. Hook the spring in there, and in the same slot on that one. Then lock it in up there. Make sure it's locked in on the bar at the bottom. Channel your inner octopus. And you are on. Brilliant. You can see the difference with the spring here. It's not stretched anywhere near as much. And yeah, it's not perfect, but there are no weak spots that I can see. There's no thinning of the metal, so I think we'll be okay. I know it's not the way you're supposed to do it, but needs must. Then we have this one down here. Oh, brake drum's joyous. Let's try it the other way. Part of the trouble is there's like nothing to get hold of that's not just going to end up with it in your way. Can I tilt that in a bit maybe? Not really. Oh, I could do it that way I suppose, but that's not ideal. Because that's supposed to lock on the back of that shoe, which is then... Oh, that's not in the groove properly. That's in the groove. Right, there we are. And now we have this one to do, which goes in there, in there. Ah. Oh. Nope, not enjoying this one bit. Maybe I should do that one afterwards. Oh, I hate this job. Everything's just difficult. Nearly. There we go. Right, that's all of our mainsprings in for the hardware. So now we put the pins through that draw the drums back. And this is also horrible, and I do not like doing it. Because it's just awkward to line everything up. It's another octopus job. I'm sure there's a tool for this as well. I'm sure there's a special tool you have for compressing and holding everything. An apprentice. Trouble is, most apprentices know more about these things than I do, so. Oh, come on. Do is something to hold that down. Something to hold that down. And then I have to turn everything. With Pat's help, got the retaining pins in. One of us holding the pin from the back and holding the shoe against the back plate, and the other one squashing the spring down and rotating the washer. It's not fun. And I got all of this together, and then I realised this spring is upside down. It's okay though, I will be taking this apart again because I need to get a replacement E-clip for this, and obviously I want to make sure everything's right. So when I do that, I'll take this lower spring off and turn it around the right way. For now, this is good enough for putting the outer drum on and getting the wheel back on the car, which is what I would like to do, and that will sort us out for the time being, because I don't like leaving the car on an axle stand like this. It I don't know, it just bothers me. Awkward camera angle time. I have a new problem, and it's a good one, this. I can't get the drum on, and the reason I can't get the drum on is there's more material on these new shoes than there were on the ones that came off. I mean, that's what came off. There's nothing on there. So the drum won't go over because I need to bring these in so the circumference is smaller. What I forgot to do was get a C-clamp on the wheel cylinder to compress it down as small as possible, and as a result this is pushing the shoes out too far for the drum to go on, and to compress that in I have to dismantle everything. I mean, I have to anyway because I put this spring on upside down, but yeah, this has taken me all day, and I am very done with this job. But I'm going to have to order some parts. I need some E-clips. I've got to try and deal with that hard line up there, which has the fitting stuck together, and really hope that I don't end up having to build a new hard line for the car, because that's more tools I need to buy. I can't believe I don't own a C-clamp. I genuinely thought I did. It's one of your basics. So I'm going to have to buy one of those. And yeah, for now, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put a carrier bag over it, and I'm going to make sure that's tied on so that it can't blow off. At least that way it's going to keep as much of the weather out as I can before the new parts arrive and I can finish this job. Yeah, this is your problem running older cars, especially rare ones like this. It can be a bit of a nightmare when you're just doing a simple job, like putting new brake shoes in, and you simply can't get the parts, and the parts you think are correct turn out to be incorrect. And yeah, Not how I planned for this to go, but never mind. It'll be probably a few days for me, but a few moments for you. Let's see this job finished. I'm going to give these a go, see if we can get this brake union thing out. These are fairly clever. They go in a standard drill, and you have a reverse thread on them, which is hardened. So as you unscrew, this piece screws into the thing that you're trying to remove. And the more you try and unscrew it, the tighter it goes, until eventually, in theory, you break the bond that's holding everything together and it comes out. Hopefully it'll work. Normally you use these on screws and bolts and you take the head off and then drill a hole of an appropriate size. But with brake lines, of course, you've already got a hole in the end of it. And I'm hoping the same principle applies. But we shall have to see. Oh, let's go up a size, that's too small. This is going about as well as you might expect. Now that's jammed in there. Okay, now I have the easy out stuck in there, and the chuck on this isn't strong enough to pull the easy out. It's just spinning, whatever I do. So that's super. Yep. Right then, that's not ideal. Oh, that's one way to do it. Learned what the problem is with the drill. Because I'm having to go in reverse to take this out, it means the chuck is untightening ever so slightly as you do that, and then of course this is just spinning. This is one of those jobs. I mean, I know that people have told me, where I've mentioned it elsewhere, just replace the brake line, but replacing the brake line itself isn't that simple. I don't have a brake flaring tool, I don't have any brake line, and there's no guarantee that's not going to generate me needing more tools for other parts of this job. So I would much rather get this out if I can. I think this will work. I just need something that can grip this end tight enough to undo it. And at the moment, I don't have that tool. Parts have arrived, namely a box of assorted E-clips, because, as I mentioned before, I wanted to change the old E-clips on here for some new ones. The problem is, the box I've ordered, they're all the wrong size. These, which are the closest fit for this one, are too big, and these, which are the closest fit for this one, are too small, and there were no in-between sizes in this kit, so that's incredibly annoying. I also ordered some new E-clips for the brake cylinder, and learned that they need to be curved ones, so they're also no good. I do have some proper ones. I did order some proper curved ones as well, and I've managed to misplace those. You ever get that feeling that you shouldn't have started a job? Because that's how I'm feeling about this one. In slightly better news, I do at least have a clamp now that fits this, so I can wind this in and I can at least rebuild everything. I just can't finish the job. Oh, and it gets better. You'll remember the fitting there that's all seized up? Well, everyone's like, get some heat in it, get some heat in it. I got myself a blowtorch. and everything I use to try and light this damn thing gets blown out while I'm sat here. So I can't light this to get the heat in that, to get that separated. I wish I'd never started this job. I don't understand how it's ended up being so difficult, but that's how it goes. It is back together. This was very, very useful, just to give me one less thing I had to hold on to. Oh, I hate doing brake drums. The only worry that I had is this stuff came out of that brake cylinder, and it's like, I don't know what it is. Feels a little bit rubbery. It could be the inside of the old brake hose or something like that. So when I bleed this, I'm going to have to take the bleed nipple out and then just sort of flush it through so it's not going to block up the bleed nipple. Right, I'm going to see if I can get the drum on. I'm going to reuse the old washer for now to hold the cylinder in until I can find the ones I bought. When I find them, obviously I'll swap that over. Hopefully the drum actually goes on this time, because I've got everything compressed in as small as it can go. We shall see. Right, I've had another crack at it, and I've got it stuck. I'm not sure if that's an improvement or not. I'm about halfway down the shoes, and yeah, I'm moving the car as I'm trying to put it on. And I can't get the shoes to go in any further than they are. They're as small as they can be, they're as lined up as they can be, and just does not want to know. I think I just have to fight with it a bit longer. All I want is to get it off this axle stand so that I can get it back on its wheels, but this is just ridiculous. One fair dose of bloody mindedness later, I found if I do this, it actually goes on. I can feel it getting a bit easier to move as well. Right. You can see the stub sticking out here, plenty of threads, so I can get a bolt on that, and I can at least tighten this up enough to put a wheel on it and get it on the floor, and then I can look at getting the extra bits and pieces I need to get a little bit further with this job. This is just, it's a nightmare, and I have to do the other side, which is going to be just as bad. You watch. Altogether, it's a 24mm on that castle nut, and it's reverse thread on this side. I've put a new cotter pin in, but I've not bent the legs back because I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to come back in here again when I've got the rest of the parts I need. And yeah, I don't want to be doing that. That'll be good enough for it just sat on the drive. I will reiterate, I am not driving this car anywhere until I've got these brakes properly sorted. So this is just to get it off that axle stand, because I don't like the weight of the body being resting on there. I'd rather it be resting on the wheel. Yeah, I think the Princess is going to be out of action for a little bit, because I think these brakes are going to be a little bit more of a headache than they've already been. But I'll pop the grease cap on and I'll pop the wheel back on, and then that's me done on this today. Well, it's back on the ground at least. I think what I'm probably going to do with this is get it trailered to a garage or get somebody to come out and do these brakes for me. I'm not really set up for doing this kind of job when it gets this involved. If it was just a simple matter of replacing a couple of parts, that would be fine, but I'm having problems with fixings and things being the wrong size, and yeah, I feel like I'm chasing my own tail a bit with this one. and it's not a great feeling. What I'll do instead is there's some bodywork I do want to deal with at the back, so I can do that no problem, and I'm just going to let the princess sit for a bit. I can deal with some other jobs that need doing, and we'll get somebody else to do the brakes probably. I can't see myself wanting to do the other side after how much of a chore this side's been.